Hello and welcome to Let's Talk Clean Air, where we find out more about how clean air can affect the quality process for you and the workplace. I'm your host, Jacob Stewart, and in this episode, we're going to be discussing dust sample analysis. With me today is Camfil APC's Blake Meade. So, how are you doing today, Blake?
Pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. To start things off, can you tell me more just about your position and what you do here at Camfil?
Yeah, sure. So I work in the research and development part of Camfil, and one of the services we offer for the mainly for like the sales reps, but for the customer too is they'll send me a sample of the dust or sometimes like a dirty filter or something, and I'll take a sample of their dust and analyze it. And basically, we have all kinds of filters, and so I'll recommend what the best type of filter is and some other things like the air cloth ratio and like the velocity for the dust capture and um, measure the moisture and all other stuff like that. But then basically, I recommend them what kind of filters they should use for their dust.
Hmm. Right. So, how long have you been working here at Camfil?
I've actually been doing this about, um, I believe it'll be 4 years coming up in January.
Okay, nice, nice. So, I guess to start things off, do you ever get dust from other countries?
Yeah, we get dust from all over. Mainly they come from the US and Europe, but we get dust samples from all over. I've gotten them from Canada, Mexico, South America, Ireland, China, Thailand. We have a Camfil branch in Thailand, and so I've seen several samples from there. The farthest one away, I think, was one from Australia, from a place that makes custom surfboards. So I got a
Oh
sample
wow.
of their fiberglass.
Yeah.
And little mom and pop shops all the way up to big manufacturers like GM and Skittles, everything.
Okay, so just so I have a better understanding of what it is that you do this for, so basically different businesses, like be it mom and pop shops or the big manufacturers like GM or Skittles, so they just send you their dust like to see if our dust collectors have the capability to deal with that specific dust, if I understand that right.
Yeah, so I'll check that we're compatible, and then I'll recommend them what the best kind of filter for their particular kind of dust is,
Okay.
and also I'll put in there some values that help the sales rep size the collector. So,
Right.
you for a job with real high loading, you may have a real big unit. For like a little mom and pop shop, you may have like a little bitty like a 2 or 4 cartridge unit collector, and I'll just look at it gives them an individualized report about their dust and just let them know that we looked at their specific dust and gave it that personal touch.
Hmm. I was kind of surprised that you said that you get some mom and pop shops like that, like smaller businesses. Would you say that it's more common that you get smaller businesses like that, or is it more common to get like the bigger clients to send you types of dust?
Probably about 50-50, but
Hmm.
especially when it comes to the big jobs, if it's not something that we already have a collector on or not something we've done before, they like to send me a sample just to make sure they nail it. We don't want
Hmm.
to mess those
Hmm.
up. But
Right.
usually, a lot of times, it's a lot of these sales guys have been doing it a long time, so they kind of have an idea. But a lot of times, if it's a dust that we've never seen before or never done before, they'll send it to me, just kind of analyze it, check for like I said, for moisture, adhesion, cohesion, different aspects of it. Particle size too. That's a big deal too.
Right. Yeah. So how many different kinds of dust are there really?
It was a little funny whenever I started working here. I never worked in industrial ventilation or dust, and so when you said dust, I was thinking about either the dust around your house or like sand, like in
Hmm.
sand dunes. That was kind of what I thought when I thought of dust. But dust could
Yeah.
really be anything, just about um, any manufacturing process you can think of, whether they're making particle board or mining or pharmaceutical, just about anything will make dust. And then if you don't pick that dust up, it ends up collecting on surfaces and could lead to health issues or present an explosion hazard. A lot of dust are explosive. So just about anything you can think of will produce a dust, and then we come up with ways to collect it and keep everybody safe. Some of the main industries we see are like dust from like laser tables where they're cutting metal, metal shops, like I said, mining dust, paper companies, any paper process or wood process, pharmaceutical industries, cosmetic brands. Then we get some dust from food and farming
Hmm.
processes and toner dust from printing companies. That's another big
Okay.
one. Yeah, I've learned a whole lot, and like I said, I've been doing this a few years, but I've been working with some great guys in R&D who've been here for 10 years plus, and so
Hmm.
I've gotten to learn a lot and got to look at a lot of different kinds of dust. It's
Yeah.
really interesting, and
So you mentioned all these different types of dust. What would you say is the weirdest sample you've seen?
the one I always like to show people or tell people about is my I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got a sample of shredded up money. That
Oh
was
wow.
that was really interesting. But yeah, we got shredded up money, and then I've looked at a lot of crazy weird stuff too, like the deodorizers they put in porta potties, the blue stuff in porta potties. I've
Oh wow.
looked I've looked at a dust from a place that makes those little pucks for that.
Mm.
We've gotten dust from, like I said, sour Skittle dust, hot Cheeto dust. I got a couple. I got a dust sample from a waste treatment facility. That was recycling.
Mm.
Like manure and stuff. And then,
Right.
but yeah, some gross stuff, some weird stuff. And then, like I said, the shred up money was the most interesting one for me.
Hmm.
Uh, the weirdest one we've ever gotten, probably ever, was uh, someone else. A guy named Daniel was doing the job before me, and he actually got a dust sample that was alive. It was
Oh really?
yeah, yeah. The place that he got it from basically grows moths like the little
Okay.
flying bugs,
Hmm.
and they use that to feed other things. But in order to raise the moths, they feed them little larvae, little uh,
Okay.
like little worms. And but they were microscopic. So Daniel just got it, and it looked like just a pile of dust until he
Hmm.
put it under the microscope, and they realized it was. Whenever he turned the camera on the microscope, he saw that it was moving.
Oh wow. So you're mentioning like all these, crazy kinds of dust that you all get. About how many samples do you get like in an average week, would you say?
Uh, an average week, I'll probably see a couple samples a week,
Hmm.
usually on average. Some weeks it kind of varies, just depending on when the sales guys are working. Sometimes
Hmm.
I'll get one a day on a busy week, but
Hmm.
two a week is pretty average.
So you all do get kind of a steady stream of these dust samples, though.
Yep, and we get dust samples, and sometimes they'll send me, our whole thing is we make filters. So sometimes I'll get dirty filters back from places. If we had any issues, we may look at the dirty filter to see if there's anything we can see. So you might not be able to see it, but right behind me over here, that's our SEM. That's our expensive piece, the scanning electron
Okay.
microscope. And if we get a filter back, we can actually cut off a little piece of it and I can stick it under that electron microscope and I can actually see the individual like pores and fibers of
Oh wow.
the filter. And so that comes in handy a lot whenever we're dealing with problem jobs. You can actually see the pores of the filter, and if there's something plugging them, you can get an idea of what it is. And we've used it before to do like an elemental analysis to
Hmm.
see what was stuck on a filter. That was kind of a mystery.
Do you guys ever get any kind of dangerous samples?
So I ask whenever they send me a dust, one of the things they ask for is I ask that they send me the SDS sheet, which stands for safety data sheet. And that's important because it lets me know what I'm handling and if it's bad to breathe. Most of the time I'm dealing with very small quantities, so it's not really an issue. But if it's a dust that's really, really small, I may have to, I've got a respirator I can put on if I need to. And we actually got a whole hazmat suit, but I haven't had to use it yet.
Hmm. That's probably a good thing,
If it's anything real dangerous, we'll just tell them not to send it.
right?
And I'll just try to kind of do a consultation over email or over the phone.
Hmm.
I got a filter back one time that was from one of those like food companies, and it was coated in cayenne pepper,
Oh wow.
and I was messing with it trying to get a dust sample off, and every time I would move the filter around, it would make me like sneeze and make
Yeah.
my eyes water. So I had to put on some safety glasses.
So is there anything that you ask of anything else that you ask of customers before they go to send you the different types of dust samples?
Mainly the SDS sheets. I'll ask for more information from the salesperson usually. I may ask if it's a dust that absorbs moisture. I may ask if they're putting the collector outside or inside, or um, sometimes where, like what country or state or location the dust came from is important. Like I said, when I get those samples from Thailand, if the dust is really hygroscopic, which means it absorbs moisture like humidity, uh, that might be an issue because in Thailand is it gets really humid. So
Hmm.
we think about that sometimes, or if it's a place that's going to be located by one of the Great Lakes or an ocean, we'll take that into consideration.
Right.
And then a lot of times I'll ask about heat in the facility because some processes are really, really hot. And so some of our filters can only go up to about 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Others can go up to above 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So I
Hmm.
may ask that. And then how often they're running. Some places run 24/7. Some places do one shift or two shift. Sometimes it's good if they have an opportunity, if they're just running like an 8-hour shift. Sometimes we ask that they do what's called offline cleaning. So our filters pulse clean with air, and sometimes for like paper dust, for instance, it really like the dust likes to bundle up into like a big cotton ball, basically, and that's not really good for the filter. So we usually ask that they offline pulse or continuous pulse to help clean the filter off.
So I guess like in a broader sense, how does this process work for the customers? Like, do they just reach out to you and ask like, "Hey, we've got this specific type of dust we want to send in and sample," or do they just go ahead and just send it to you unannounced, or how does that work?
Uh, you know, I prefer not to get them unannounced, but things happen.
Right, right.
Usually they're working with usually they're talking to a sales rep or an aftermarket rep before they're talking to me. And so I've got a request form that I'd like them to fill out if they need that. And I think you can get it on our website, or usually, like I said,
Okay.
the sales rep they're working with, we usually provide that and help them fill that out. And then, so just they were sending the request form, the safety data sheet along with the dust, and hopefully it's all sealed up nice and well.
Hmm.
And
Right.
then I'll look at the SDS sheet over and then see what I need to do before I open the sample. And
Gotcha.
like I said, the sales rep can help them with the request form, or it's on our website, and I'll look that over.
So, once you receive the dust samples, like what do you look for in the dust?
So the one of the big things I get is one thing that's kind of hard to tell just from looking at the dust, like in a picture or something, is the particle size, and that's
Hmm.
what this machine right here behind me is for. It's a optical particle sizer analysis spectrometer, and it's got in this little shell here, it's got a laser beam, and I can put a little sample of the dust in, and it vacuums it up, and then it shines laser on it, and it'll tell me what the particle size is. And that's a big thing for seeing to find out on the dust, because when you're talking about dust, you're talking in terms of micrometers or microns for short. And
Hmm.
a micron is 1,000 times smaller than a millimeter. So when we think about a human hair is about 50 to 70 microns in diameter. So not
Hmm.
length, but like the width of a hair is 50 to 70 microns, to give you an idea of the scale. And we humans can see down to about 40 microns. And so if you can make out individual grains or fibers, the dust is easily 100 to 300 microns in size. Fine beach sand is about 60 to 150 microns. A grain of salt could be 60 microns. And then once you get smaller than that, white blood cells are 25 microns, red blood cells are 7 to 8 microns. And so fine powdery dust could be anywhere from 8 to about 50 microns. So basically getting this down to the size of your cells. And then you get to at that range, just with fine dust, you're getting down to below the limits of what your eye can see. And then I get some dust sometimes it's 1 micron or less, or 3 microns or less, and that's the size of bacteria. So, like I said, you can kind of tell by looking something like this mining dust I have here. You can tell is from your eyes quite a bit bigger than the silica dust. But when fine particulate, we're talking about fine particulate, the you can't really tell with your eye how small something is. As far as like we have filters that are way better at filtering out something that's 50 microns versus our for something that's 1 or 3 microns in size. We need to go with a different kind of filter media that's got a nanofiber coating, so it can catch those smaller dust particles. And I can't really tell that about the dust until I put it in the particle sizer over there. I'll also check the moisture content. That's another big one. And like I said, how much it absorbs moisture, because depending on where the dust is at or being collected, that'll be a big deal. And then I'll take a picture. I'll take a picture under, I got a microscope here. I'll take a picture of the dust under the microscope, show to the customer or whatever, so I can show them that we looked at the dust, and the shape of the dust could make a difference in how the dust will flow through the air whenever we're collecting it.
Hmm.
So like paper dust will look like long, skinny fibers, and then something like silica dust, like sand, will look like little pebbles or little rocks. And the shape of that will make a difference in how it flows through the air, and could make a difference in what kind of part air to cloth ratio, or how we size the collector.
Right. So you mentioned a little bit about this, but what sort of equipment do you use to test the dust?
Yeah, so like I said, I've got the microscope to take pictures of the dust, and I've got the particle size analyzing machine with the laser. We've got the SEM that can take pictures of the filter media and see the individual uh, pores and look at what's plugging the media.
Hmm.
I've also got, it's not out, but I've got a instrument to measure like the moisture content of the dust. So about the only thing I didn't mention was we have a scale. So I measure the bulk density of the dust using our scale. I'll take a little sample of the dust and basically get a bulk density in pounds per cubic foot. So that's useful too when we're talking about dust loading and how heavy the filter is gonna be once it's fully loaded and that kind of stuff.
Hmm. So do you use every bit of this equipment for every type of dust sample you get, or do you just use some of it for specific dusts, or does it vary, or?
The only thing, the SEM is kind of a special thing that we only do sometimes, but I'll use the rest of that for every report gets. I can take a picture of the dust and get the particle size and measure the moisture, and then how much it absorbs the moisture, and I'll get the bulk density. Sometimes we'll do. I noticed that it's got quite a bit of moisture in it from the just like the humidity meter. Then I'll take it and I'll we've got an oven. I'll put it in and I'll get a moisture by weight. That's like I said, the moisture by weight and the SEM are the only things that are kind of special.
So I guess from start to finish, about how long does this process typically take?
Usually from the time I receive the dust, I usually give myself about a week before I send them the final report. And, depending on how much I have to discuss it with the sales rep, we may have to take a little longer if we need to discuss anything.
Okay, so having said all that, why is it so important to investigate the dust?
Yeah. So, like I said, a big thing for me to look at is the particle size, because, like I said, you can't tell with your eye how small something is, and that could be really dangerous. Um, Another thing is looking at whether or not we need grounded or flame retardant filter cartridges. So the National Fire Protection Agency, NFPA, has regulations as far as, I guess not really regulations as much as recommendations about whenever you're dealing with metal dust, it's recommended to have grounded filter media, grounded cartridges, just to keep from triggering any explosions. And sometimes with uh, really light dust like the silica dust I showed you before, something like this, it would be important to have grounded cartridges, because that stuff is so small and so light that static could actually um, cause the dust to not really come off the filters.
Hmm.
And then flame retardant filters, if we have anything that's going to be flammable, um, fire retardant filters will help slow down any fires inside the collector. And then if we're talking about like food dust, a lot of times we want to have washable filter media, because a lot of food dusts are uh, could be moist and they are always sticky. So we'll put a washable filter media in that's made of like polyester, and so the customer can take the filters out and wash them. Usually
Okay.
we like to stick to food with that, because there's a lot of dust that you don't want to wash down the drain, but food dust is usually fine. So they can take the filters out and wash them and reuse the filters, and that'll help extend their filter life with the sticky dust like sugar or something like that.
Hmm.
And then some dusts also have a certain amount of oil in them. So we have oleophobic coated filters that we can recommend. Like, for instance, I think about coffee dust. Coffee dust can be really oily, and so
Hmm.
we'll recommend some oleophobic filters to, because oil is obviously not good for like paper filter media, and
Right.
so
Right.
we have special filters we'll recommend for that. Um, and we'll look at that. And like I said, our whole goal is to, the most important thing is keeping the workers safe at the places where we put our collectors. So I don't do it here, but I also, we can talk about like explosion testing, combustible dust testing.
Hmm.
We go through a third party, we go through third party labs to test the combustibility of a dust, but I also do a little bit with that. There's some paperwork that you have to send to the testing lab, and then you've got to interpret the results. And so sometimes I help with that. I don't do it here, like I said, but I'll do the paperwork for customers that want to have their dust combustible tested. And as the years go by, we're doing that more and more because just about every dust now is explosive, and you need to make sure you have the proper safety equipment to make sure you
Right.
don't have like a fireball going back into the facility, or um, make sure that the collector is protected against any combustion that would go on.
Right. Right. So one thing I'm sure customers are wondering about is this test free?
So the filter testing I do, where I take a picture of the dust and get the particle size and then recommend filters, that test is free. The only caveat to that is obviously if we're doing it for free, we want the result of that to be us selling you filters or selling a collector. And uh,
Right.
it doesn't always have to be for a new collector sale. Some places have a competitor collector, and we'll take a look at their dust and recommend like a retrofit filter. So
Hmm.
we'll use our media to make a filter for um, their collector, whoever it's made by.
Hmm.
So we like to have there to be some sort of future filter sale or collector sale. Hopefully that gets connected to the dust test. And like I said, if they want to do that, so just if they want to do that, they just need to contact their sales rep or their aftermarket rep, and we can look at doing that. But it
Hmm.
is free. And then if they want, I mentioned the combustible dust testing. If they want to do that, like I said, we go through a third party lab for that. I don't have the equipment to do that here, so there is a charge for that just because the third party testing lab is going to charge us for it. So
Right.
we kind of um, pass that cost on to the customer if they want to do that, and they can contact me and I can help them with that.
So having said all of that, what would you say is your favorite or some of your favorite samples that you've gotten in the past?
My favorite one is we get a lot. I think I mentioned earlier, industrial printing facilities. We get dust from those uh, kind of regularly, and I always like those because they always send in. So they'll do like big 16-foot posters and stuff, and
Hmm.
they basically have giant laser printers, and so they'll spread this what would you call it, like toner dust, and then
Hmm.
they'll heat it up and make a giant poster. But it's cool because the samples are always these really
Okay.
brightly colored, like you get cyan and
Yeah.
orange.
Okay.
I
Yeah.
said cyan. I meant magenta.
Oh, okay.
I'm scientist, not a color scientist. Yeah, but yeah, those are always cool just because they're you know really brightly colored and beautiful. It's really
Right.
interesting. A lot of dust, whenever you look at them under the microscope, are often they look like they're a certain color, but then when you zoom in real close, most like everything's made of molecules, and between those molecules is a lot of air or dead space. So most things, when you put them under the microscope, are clear, kind of like crystals.
Hmm.
But toner dust, when you get under the microscope, is still whatever color it is. It's really bright. And
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by, Blake. This podcast was produced by Camfil, the world leader in the production and development of air filters and clean air solutions. You can find out more at camfil.com. Be sure to join us for our next episode and be sure to subscribe to get notifications for future episodes. Until then, I'm your host, Jacob Stewart, and this has been Let's Talk Clean Air. Thank you for listening.